Isn't hiring hard enough without guessing who's actually going to work out? The Predictive Index uses behavioral data to help you hire the right people and keep them thriving before things go sideways. Stop winging it and visit try.predictiveindex.com and figure out what actually drives your people.
Welcome to I Hate It Here, the podcast for HR and people professionals, making the hardest job in the world just a little bit easier. I'm Hibba Youssef.
All right, we'll see how it goes, and very much prepared for the worst, and was like, I just had no idea how it would go. Was like my main point of reference was movies and TV where people get fired. It's very dramatic.
Another week, another episode of your favorite podcast in your ears. I'm Hibba, your host and resident hater. Every week, you can find me yapping in your ears about something work-related. Honestly, I can't shut up about all the things that I think about work. Each season of the podcast has a theme, and this season, we are hearing from guests who want to talk about their first time. First mistakes, first breakthroughs, first time they did something that scared them, because honestly, you learn so much from the first time you've done anything. And joining me today to talk about her first termination, the nerves, the hard conversations, and what she learned from it is Jen Laurie. Jen is a fractional chief people officer and founder of Equitable HR Guild. With over 15 years of experience in nonprofit and startup spaces, she helps organizations build equitable, sustainable workplaces rooted in care and clarity. She specializes in HR infrastructure, change management, and embedding DEI into every aspect of how organizations operate. Her work centers queer and disability inclusion, mutuality between employee and employer, and the belief that good HR can actually make work better for everyone, which we all know I believe. Jen, welcome back to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so ready to be a big dork with you today. Should we talk about our random TikTok lore? Just kidding. Last time I saw Jen, we were going on a deep dive of some of our favorite TikTok influencers.
It's all I want to talk about. That and HR, I guess. But
I learned a lot. But honestly, I don't know if and by the time this episode airs, this drama will be old news, but there's like some Summer House Bravo drama happening right now.
I've seen the ripple effects of that, but I'm not fully looped in. Yeah.
Listen, 9 months ago, my direct report begged me to watch Bravo. And I was like, I have nothing against reality TV, but I'm from the era where reality TV was competition based, like American Idol, The Challenge, Big Brother. Those are core to me. So reality TV for just like watching people do things in other places isn't really my strong suit. But I am exploring in the Bravo universe. And now I've watched Summer House, Southern Charm, Southern Hospitality, and I started Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Oh, you're in it. That's a good slate. Yep.
I am deep in the Bravo verse. And she's so happy because the news broke yesterday about Amanda and West and their alleged affair. And that's all she and I have been talking about.
I love it.
How can I make that work related? No, I'm just kidding. I am not about to take that take on this, but like it could. Ironically enough, I've had a few guests this season talk about things that involve terminations, but never their first termination. So I had someone talk about when they had to be an HRBP and that the work resulted in them having to do a termination. And the other person talked about when people were being targeted like unfairly based on their identity. So like, I love that you also were like, let's talk first termination. Cause I feel like people learn so much from their first, that one for sure. You never forget. I remember the first person I terminated.
Yep. Exactly.
I was bad.
Stays with you forever.
I know. Before I get to it, though, I've been asking everyone this season, what's something you believed about work in your early career that you've completely unlearned?
I think I had a very strong idea when I started working, especially working in HR, which was like close to when I started really working, that there was like a best practice for everything. And there's like one gold standard way to do it. And like everybody knows it and you have to learn it. And then we're good. And we just move forward with those. And yeah, I think I realized that it's not one size fits all, obviously. And also nobody knows what they're doing. We're all figuring it out.
We're all doing our best. I'm literally just doing my best.
Developing good professional judgment and discernment and like, sure, having a great toolbox of options, but there's not one way. There's not like this, like, again, gold standard way to be an HR person or like to run a business or to do anything at work. Like we're all figuring it out. And I think that's very liberating.
Like when we were at Transform, I asked somebody, do you PIP or not PIP employees? And I had someone who was like, I never PIP. We just fire them and give them a really good severance. And then somebody else was like, you have to PIP. And I was like, this is a contested topic within HR.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, like really depends on the organization and how much trust and how much, you're willing to provide severance and support and all of these other factors. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a whole episode for another day. I'm really dreaming of an episode called To Pip or Not to Pip. That is the question. Thank you, William Shakespeare, for that. Okay, take me back in time, if we were in the DeLorean, to your first termination. What was the situation, and how did you end up being the one to do it?
Yes. So my first termination was in my first real HR role. I'd done a little bit of HR prior to that at a construction company. But then I was working at a coffee shop where I was both a barista and also HR because they didn't have HR and they were like, "You've done HR before." And so they sent me to a 1-day seminar in a hotel in LA that was about California labor laws. And that was it. It wasn't like a full HR crash course. It was just like, here's some random labor laws that are up and coming. Like looking back on it now, I'm like, this was not the thing that I needed on day one of stepping into HR. But it's what I got. So I was not the most equipped. I was very young, very green in HR. I don't have an educational background in HR. And yeah, they hadn't ever had it. It was just the owners running, the HR, not even calling it that. And so, of course, when it came to terminate someone, I was the person to have the
You were
conversation.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was both their day-to-day colleague, making coffees next to them, and also the person who had to deliver the news to them.
Is
which
that
was kind of brutal.
normal or appropriate at all?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. There's some benefits to it for sure because I was very much embedded in the day to day, and I had relationships and was coaching managers in real time and all these different things. But I don't think it's definitely not typical, and I don't know that I recommend it.
Would not recommend that as a best practice.
Exactly.
Or just a practice. I would not recommend.
A practice period. Yep.
What were you thinking? Because this is in person, right? A lot of us have fired a lot of people in the remote world, but this was in person. What were you feeling going into that room?
I mean, I didn't even know again how you're supposed to do that. I had very little. I think we did not have the tools. We didn't have as many resources as we have now. So I think I Googled how to fire someone and probably got some blog post or something that told me how to do it. And I was also working with a manager who was very new and had never terminated anyone. And so we both were kind of all right, we'll see how it goes, and very much prepared for the worst. And was I just had no idea how it would go. Was my main point of reference was movies and TV where people get fired and it's very dramatic. And
yeah,
so
same.
That's what I was prepared for.
So what actually happened when you had to finally do it?
So we had the conversation, and a little context too. So this person was late to work at least 50% of their shifts, very late, didn't communicate, was also just not very communicative when they were working. If they were working on the register, they would just walk away and not tell anyone. And there'd be a line out the door. There was just some pretty egregious things happening. Many, many conversations with them day to day from their manager, from me. So there was a lot leading up to this, but we had the conversation with him. We did cut straight to the point and said, "Hey, we do need to let you know that we're letting you go." And his response was, he took a second, and then he said, "That's probably a good call." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, that makes sense. And that's probably a good call." I totally understand. We were okay, absolutely shocked by how positively it went and how differently it went than we were prepared for. But yeah.
I have had those types, and I have had the where they scream at you type. And listen, I try to approach these, and I think you do too, with the most empathetic way possible. Losing your job is terrifying. I have to do everything in my power to make sure that they know that that's the path we are on, so they are aware and they can course correct. But then when you finally have to do it, it's awful. It's awful. On the podcast last season, I talked about how there was this woman in HR someone was telling me about, and she said she loves firing people.
What?
And I was like, I don't think you should be in HR anymore because there's nothing to love about someone losing their income, and our healthcare is attached to our employment. There's no joy in this. I do not derive joy from people losing their job. Maybe you shouldn't be in HR then.
Yeah. Seek help. That's
right. Exactly. Seek help, because that is not an appropriate response. And this is like such a sensitive conversation, especially with like the job market the way that it is. Like you and I both know what the world looks like right now to get another job. And so I think HR people are carrying like a lot of weight in terminating the person. And that's not to play victim or center us in the situation. But I also think like that there's a piece of this too, that it does weigh really heavy on the average HR person, that they have to execute this thing that maybe they don't agree with or they wish they didn't have to do. Like it gets so complicated when it comes to terminations.
Exactly. And I think it should. And to me, it's like a signal that you're a good, empathetic HR leader, that it weighs heavily on you. I have never spoken to anyone who said they love it. Like, I do think people sometimes get pretty used to it and, like maybe are less affected by it. I think that's fine if you have to do it that way. Like, everyone has their own coping. I'm not here to judge that, but I think, yeah, it's something that, of course, has a huge impact on an individual. And I every single time, like, I can remember every single person that I've terminated, and it's been many over the years. I like remember the situation. I remember what led up to it. I think about what I could have done differently leading up to it. Like, they, for lack of a better word, like haunt me to think about, again. And I think that's okay, because again, we're empathetic people, and you're making a huge impact on a person and their livelihood and all the things. Yeah.
The first few times I fired people, I instantly cried afterwards, like legit tears. And then that continued for about a year. And then in year 2, like I would have to like take a walk and it'd be like less crying. And now I'm in year whatever of terminating people. And I still like, I have to walk away from my computer. I have to like take a breath. I have to think about anything else, because it is, I think, really hard. And that's how we maintain like humanity in the workplace though. Like, how, if I didn't feel bad about it, what would that mean about me? Like,
Right.
well, I don't know. That story about the HR leader who loved it, I was like, I'm so sorry, something wrong with that whole situation. Like, you should figure out some other job to do, because I don't know a single person who says they love terminating people.
Right. And like, I think again, like the sort of like having them hang with you and like, coming back to them is part of, again, being a good HR leader, where like you need to think about, again, how is this impacting the person? How can I be more empathetic? Not like on just an emotional level, but how can I make sure that I'm doing everything possible to give this person what they need, and yeah, like minimize the harm. If you don't care, then I don't know. I don't think you're probably doing it very kindly.
I love the minimize the harm, because you're like the kind of the last face the employee sees before losing their job, and like that's a very traumatic experience. So I can't even, like, we have to remember that there are people at every side of this. What is something that nobody teaches you about terminations before you have to do your first one? Or like the one thing that nobody mentioned?
I don't know that I got this from I don't think anyone told me this. I don't think this came from my Googling of how to do a termination, but I think like getting to it quickly, like being very direct and clear quickly, and not making it an emotional conversation, not centering yourself, like that sort of posture, I think. But yeah, there are some resources out there, but I think like that cannot be overstated how important that is to, again, be clear, be concise, get to the point, don't spend a lot of time talking about how it's impacting you. All of that, I think, is like absolutely critical in how well the conversation goes, and not talked about enough.
Drawing it out is wild. Like, this is not a feedback sandwich situation where you want to say something nice, say the hard thing, and then say something nice. It's like you need to be as clear and concise as possible, and telling this person, like, beating around the bush only just makes the whole situation way worse. Do you think there's a right way to deliver a termination?
I think there's a lot of wrong ways. I don't know that there's a right way. I think that there is, and again, I think it's like getting straight to the point. And I think the other piece that's the right way is to have some flexibility and openness to like what the person needs, because I think there are some people who will want to have a conversation, or may appreciate some context, or may want to take a break and then come back to you with some questions, or like have a lot of detailed, like going straight to what does this mean for my benefit? So I think you have to have a lot of openness and like flexibility to, again, what that person needs in that moment, because this is a lot to process. So I think that's like the through line that's the right way. But I mean, there's no like great way to do it. It's not, any way is not going to be great. But again, there's plenty of wrong ways, I would say.
For sure.
Yes.
Something I try to do is say on the call, like, I'm gonna share a lot of details with you about, like, the HR piece of this. Just rest assured, I'm gonna follow up in an email right after this with everything written out for you. Because, like, right, you're, like, in the middle of losing your job. You're not probably processing everything being said. So I always like to say, I'll follow up right away, immediately in writing with everything you and I discuss on this call.
Yep.
I
I
found,
like
like,
saying
that really helps
yeah,
people.
it does help a lot. I also like sometimes offering, like, if it's feasible within the timing, like, hey, I have some more detailed information. I'm happy to go through it now. And then, yeah, I will follow up in writing. I'm
Yeah.
also happy to give you like a moment to process and then we can hop back on the call or like schedule time for in an hour. Like, just again, giving some flexibility for people because I think some people will totally just not take in any of the detail. And like, sure, there's certain things you do have to share in that moment. But again, like trying to just make sure that people get the information in the way that makes sense to them and that they're not just cut off in that moment and on their own to figure it out.
Something so wild. Did you see the news yesterday about the Oracle layoffs?
I
Where
did.
they laid
Yes.
off 30,000 people and they didn't tell them that layoffs were coming. They just woke up to emails in their inboxes at 6 a.m. and being cut out of all the systems.
Yep, I did.
Any hot take on that?
The wrong way.
That's the wrong way. That's
Okay.
the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a particularly hot take, but would say not a great way to do it. Yeah, as you said, I think this in most cases, like sure, there may be some scenario where you really don't know, and it suddenly there's a situation where you need to lay off without much notice. But if possible, like have it not be something that has never been uttered before. I do think there's also a limit on the other side. Like you don't want to be talking about layoffs for 6 months and having it hang over everyone's heads, but yeah, there's a middle ground that I think is typically the right path.
I think the not telling them it's coming and then waking up to an email is probably like the most cruel thing you could do to
Mhm,
a human being.
mhm. Also, 6 a.m., like, I don't yeah, I mean, I
Maybe take
understand
yeah.
operationally why you might do that, but it is, like, horrifically, yeah, harmful to someone's psyche, and yes,
Also,
like,
what if
yeah,
someone is in the middle of their workday in a different time zone, or do they batch this? I have a lot of questions. I will need to be following up. I'm sure there's a TikTok in me to be made on this exact topic because I was just like, we are already at like an all-time low of
Mhm,
humanity when it comes to corporations and how they treat employees. But now you're going to set the stage as like a big company terminating 30,000 people and doing it via email. What precedent does that set for all the rest of us who are trying to do it the right way and balance the human with the
mhm.
decision that had to be made? It's so icky. Next, you know, they'll be like, AI will actually be firing you now. Could you imagine? I would be livid.
Oh, I think that is not unlikely to happen. Yeah, yeah. Like, we'll do an AI bot that's gonna, like, have a one-on-one conversation with you to provide more I don't know, a concierge or something.
Sick to my stomach at that thought. Disgusting.
I think you see it, like, someone will
Could
do
see it.
that.
Could
Yeah.
easily see it because we're at the stage of corporate, I don't even know what is called fuckery. Am I
Mhm.
allowed to say that? Probably. But, like, we're
Yeah.
at the
It's true.
stage of corporate fuckery where I could see corporations doing that. Like, why do you
Mhm.
think so many
Mhm.
people hate it here? Because we
Right.
don't treat each other nicely. And that's when you wanted to talk about your first termination, I was like, we should, because so many
Mhm.
people should know there's a lot to learn from the
Mhm.
first time you terminate
Mhm.
somebody. And if you should be thinking about your termination practices at every inflection point of your company's history. I think about it after every termination. I'm like, what went wrong? What went right? What would I do differently? And like every time I get better at the process, and my goal is to move it to be the most humane thing possible while somebody is losing their livelihood. And that's like no, not a joke. Like you should take that so seriously when you work in HR.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think the thing about terminations is, and you mentioned this too, is you want to talk about like having hard conversations. There's usually this like trail of hard conversations before you even get to a termination. Where do most managers go wrong in that buildup?
I think, like, the number one thing, and I think it shows up in different ways, is avoidance. And it's like, it's either literal avoidance of, like, not giving the feedback, or it's like giving the feedback, but not really talking about the impact, or like not really talking about the stakes, or yeah, doing like a compliment sandwich and avoiding the real actual like direct meat of the feedback. And again, of how is this impacting? What does this mean for like our company? What are the stakes of this? Is this something we've talked about many times? And I want to acknowledge that. Like all of that is avoided and makes it so that people are maybe getting some thread of feedback, but again, it's like not clear. They don't understand where they are in sort of a process. Like there's no clarity there, and so much guessing, and so much like it just makes it harder in the end for everyone involved.
Yeah, the avoidance thing is so interesting. Or they'll like give the hard feedback and be like, but you're doing so great. And I'm like,
You're trying so hard. It's like, that's not helpful in this moment.
I just think like people would be better served if they could just be all like, I understand it is hard to say hard things, right? Like I've been there. I am different in which I like conflict. I'm fine with discomfort. These are things I'm like almost numb to at this point in my life and career. But there's nothing wrong with saying like, hey, your performance is not great and it's trending in a direction where there might have to be more serious things that happen if we're not on a different path, if we don't go down a different path.
Right. Exactly. Being very clear. What are the stakes? Yeah. What is the real situation that's happening here? Not just like, this could be better, but yeah, you're doing great, or you're trying hard, or this other thing is going really well. That's not an accurate piece of feedback.
But I also think like right now more than ever, employees need you to be honest and direct with them because everyone is worried about losing their job. I have not met a single person who's like, my job is safe. I've met every single person who's like, I need to do something to solidify my job. Like it's like a very bleak time right now. I don't know. I don't know how else to say that. We're going to bring I hate to say this, we're going to bring some positivity to this episode. You know, I hate toxic positivity shit, but
it's like this topic is hard in any time. I think it's the hardest part of HR for most of us. And in this moment, it is especially hard because it's like just a reality and it's happening more and more. It's happening more and more in really awful, harmful ways. And yeah, I think again, we have to acknowledge that and learn from that.
Something I think about a lot is like clarity and care. And, you know, Brene Brown has that quote. I'm not by any means a Brene Brown stan, which is like the record to show, but I do like this one quote and I reference it quite often on this podcast. I've not read anything else she has read. I've not read anything else she has written. So you can call me a Brene Brown fraud. I'm fine with that. But she has this quote called clear is kind. And like this idea of balancing clarity and care, because a lot of people think like those things are actually opposite. Like, how do you think about the clarity and care and how they work together to actually give people a better sense of where things are headed?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I also don't love Brene Brown. Did not know that was a Brene Brown concept, but it's not only her concept. So it's okay. But I agree. Like, I think giving clarity is the kind of thing to do. Again, giving people the information so that they know where they stand, what they need to be improving on. Yeah. In a termination conversation, if it gets to that point, like they understand very quickly what's happening. It's not being drawn out and like, am I being fat? You know, like no one should have to ask those types of questions of what's happening. Yes, I have sat on a leader having a conversation like that where it was so winding that the person was like, I don't understand what's happening. Is this a termination? No. And finally had to say it explicitly. Yes. But yeah, that no one should be asking those questions. Like even in a performance conversation, they should understand, you know, what's happening here. And certainly as it gets closer, if you are doing PIPs, if you're having those conversations, like it needs to be clear.
Yeah.
Because people, you know, like it both helps people prepare and also take different action. Like if I don't know what's not going well and the impact of it and the stakes of it, then I might not be prioritizing it as much and I might not be preparing. And like, you know, I don't have the information available to me that I need to be able to operate. So I think it's really just giving people full information and transparency.
Yeah. That's hard for so many people, as you and I both know. All of us want to know what makes people work at work. Like, how will they handle feedback or make decisions or work with the team without causing chaos? The Predictive Index uses behavioral assessments to show you how people actually think and work, so you're not guessing and hoping for the best. Maybe Mike needs structure to thrive, or Margot desires more collaboration. When you understand your people, work actually works. Take the behavioral assessment today at try.predictiveindex.com and finally get some real answers. Okay, so you work a lot on Equitable HR. I have your Equitable HR Guild sticker on my computer. I have to ask, how does bias show up in termination decisions? And how do you catch it before it's too late?
I mean, it shows up a lot and in many, many conversations around performance, around feedback, around terminations. I think one of the ways it shows up that like we often kind of I don't know, minimize is around just like more personal bias, where I'm sure many of us have had like that manager where you just know that they're trying to get someone out and they have this like personal vendetta and they're like just trying to get rid of this person. And they don't really have a lot of like, they certainly have not had a lot of conversations. They don't have even a lot of concrete reasons. It's just like you just don't want this person. And I hear that, and often like people say that more just like sort of again like a personal, I just don't like them, or maybe they won't say that, but you can see that as the HR professional. They just have a weird thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of bias underneath that, because it's like you'll hear things like, "Oh, they're hard to manage," and it's like, well, are they hard to manage for you because you want to manage someone who's more like you, or who you're more used to working with, or who you might relate to more, and yeah, or like, oh, they just don't fit in, or they're not, yeah, like those types of things, right? Where there's not a real reason there, and there's often a lot of like really really harmful bias underneath it. So I think it's like to get around it, just this applying the rigor and scrutiny to any performance conversation or corrective action or termination of like what's really going on. Are we being specific? Is there an expectation that's been set and communicated that we can point to? And if not, then yeah, there's probably a lot of bias underneath there. So I think that helps sort it out a little bit. I mean, you still can never fully get around it, but that's definitely something I go to often.
Yeah. When I encounter managers like that, I just have no patience for it now. Like early in my career, I think I probably would have like rolled over a time or two if I was like, oh, the manager thought this termination was needed. But like, no, never again. Like I'm like, where's the evidence? What do you mean about hard? Can you describe difficult? Difficult how? Can you give me an example? Like I am the queen of, can you give me an example? And then when the manager's like, I don't have one. I'm like, oh, okay. So until you can document an example, we will be pursuing no other further corrective action.
I think the posture to take is like, convince me that there is a case for moving forward with the termination, instead of like, sure, and then let's maybe poke some holes in it. Like, no, even if I may see it a little bit, or I may have insight into it and why they may be moving forward with that, I'm still like, no, you need to convince me and show me, and there has to be a real reason, because again, I think that's the role of HR to do that both on behalf of the employee, on behalf of the company. Like that's I think our
Have you ever lost that battle? Because I have.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
I
I've
think
lost it, I think, more earlier in my career, and I think I've gotten better at asking better questions and
Same.
like developing more rigor and scrutiny, and which I think is a good thing. But yeah, I definitely have earlier on.
I didn't have like the legs to stand on early in my career, because I do think it takes a level of like authority and respect and power to like really push back on some of these decisions, which I hate to say out loud, because I know there's probably someone listening to this who's an HRBP who just like is told they have to fire the person and doesn't get the opportunity to push back. But I think like that's where the system needs a lot of work, because it should never be us just freely enacting the will of the manager. It should be like process and policies in place, because that is how we keep things equitable. Like I shouldn't have to fight you for an equitable decision to be made. But right now in the current state that a lot of us exist in, we have to nudge or fight or claw our way to something, a conversation, a situation, anything to get it to be an equitable outcome. And I think that really bothers me. I don't know how we solve for that though. Like what's the solve?
I mean, I do think it's unfortunate that this is like the thing that I would go to a lot of times, but is this the risk involved in like terminations if there's not, again, really clear documentation and good rationale? Because early in my career, I also had leaders say like, well, this person wants to let this person go, so I'm going to move forward with it. And they were ultimately the decision maker. And I don't think I felt comfortable to say like, well, that's really not a good practice. And like, we need better documentation, if nothing else. And certainly like, I think if you have a values aligned leader or org, you can push for some of that like equity piece more. But I think if nothing else, sometimes just identifying the risk of a
Yeah.
not well documented, not clearly,
But
defined.
we're an at-will state.
Right. That doesn't mean that someone can't claim an
Unlawful termination.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm just like, the things people say right now, I'm just like, did you hear yourself say that?
Mm-hmm.
Is this your job area of expertise? Oh, it's not? So funny. Then maybe you should listen to me.
Yep.
I'm real sassy today. I'm coming off of like a transform. I'm sick. This Bravo drama. It's really sending me into a spiral and an abyss of I'm really mad at everybody and we have to fix it. But that's really the theme of I Hate It Here. I'm really
It
mad
is.
at everybody and we got to fix it.
There's
And we
so
have to
much.
fix it. The piece that I think is super important, like termination handled well, you do it in an empathetic, human way. You give the employee all the information, all of that stuff. The part that I think sometimes a lot of people miss is like what happens after. So, like, what's the conversation that has to happen after, either with the team, the manager, that people should or should not skip?
I think it's like the learning piece is the one that's most often skipped. So it's both like self-reflection as an HR leader of what did I learn here, what went well, what didn't, like how did the person react, which isn't always based on sometimes you can do everything right and prepare everything and the person will still have, whatever reaction, which again, they're totally entitled to in a moment like that. But, sometimes it can give you like a question that they ask or a thing that comes up will help you learn how to better prepare next time. And then I think it's also learning with the manager of like, yeah, how did this go? Thinking about those lessons of leading up to having conversations, certainly like if the employee is very surprised by a termination conversation, like that's something to go back to a manager and have conversations on and do some coaching. So I think that's the thing that gets missed most often is you often do jump right to like, how do we communicate this to the team or what's like the next step, or let's just recover from this big change that happened and not like take a moment to actually reflect and learn from it and also implement changes into our process for next time and get
I love
better.
that. Like a
Yeah.
debrief, but with
Mhm.
yourself.
Right. Yes. And with the manager usually
And
because
yes, with the manager, we have to. I usually talk through terminations with the manager right after too, just like what went well, how do you think it went, how do you feel, that type of stuff. It is interesting though, like how you announce terminations, because I did work with a CEO once who was like, "Can we just tell people we fired them for performance issues?" And I was like, I mean, do you want to be telling people that? Like, I think this is like such an interesting debate to have,
Mhm.
potentially with a CEO. Like, do you tell your org we fired someone because of performance? I mean, I don't think you should. I worked with the CEO, Jim, and I mentioned Jim on two episodes at this point. But at Axios, he had two things. He said, I will never talk to you about like what an employee's compensation is, because that's none of your business. And the second thing is I will not tell you why people choose to leave this organization or when people choose to leave. Like it's not those two things. I don't know if he still abides by that rule today, but those were two of the things that we never did. But then I went from him to like another CEO who's like, we should just tell people we fire people for performance here. And it's like such a hot take. So if you were in an org, I'm going to throw you in an org, and your CEO is like, we're not going to say names, but actually let people know who leaves.
I think it really it's again a thing of like there's not a perfect practice. I think you have to be consistent and you have to make like a choice and really think it through and stick to that. I think that there's, in larger organizations, I think sometimes it might make sense to like talk about something more generally because there's a little more anonymity because of size. But when it's very obvious who it was, I do think I lean towards not sharing details of why, just like out of respect for the person's privacy and dignity. Yeah, I think sometimes you can share a little bit of detail, but again, like doing it consistently so that when you run into a situation where you can't share it, it's not like, oh, what does it mean that this wasn't shared? And, so I tend to lean towards like just keep it very plain of, this person is no longer here and like, something very, very brief and decide what it is and have it be consistent rather than give detail and then in some cases not give detail and what's communicated there implicitly and all of that.
I do think when you're one-on-one, like let's say you're a small team and you've had to terminate someone, that's where I think you can say like there were performance issues, like, but at the company level, emailing everyone and being like, we fired so-and-so because of a performance issue feels absolutely like a no to me. We announce all of our departures in our company newsletter, or my CEO writes a newsletter. Every Sunday it goes out and we announce departures in there. And that really came from, I had an employee like 3-ish years ago be like, people are disappearing into the night and
Right.
we like know that they're gone, but then we only announce it at the team level and we're not doing anything organizationally, but then people will notice it and it's like not a good look. And so
Mhm.
my CEO and I drafted like we went back and forth on should we announce, should we not announce? Like he was like, I think it sometimes gives people more fear. I'm like, I think the clarity is really what you need. And we like landed on we'll announce it in his Sunday newsletter. And I think we've stuck pretty true to that. We have not missed a departure in years. And that was all because an employee came to us and was like, I can't believe we're not announcing these like on a company-wide level more.
I do think announcing it, because I've gotten that exact comment of like people are disappearing in the night, and that doesn't feel good to anyone, or like suddenly they're not in Slack and nobody knows what happened. Like it just doesn't feel good for anyone involved. And again, I think that consistently, like that's great. You have a standing place that like this message is communicated. It like takes some of the air out of it so that it's not like, sometimes it's a big conversation in a meeting and sometimes it's like a Slack message, and reading into again, like what's communicated there implicitly. I think that like, let's just keep it consistent.
I think employees will, fictionalize whatever they can if you're not clear. And when you leave the gray area, I do think our human nature, maybe I need to like look up a study on this, but I feel like when things are ambiguous or the gray area, like we
Oh,
as
yeah, you
human
fill it in.
beings,
Yeah.
and we also jump to, I think, worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like jump to like the best case scenario. Like, oh, they got another job somewhere else. They're making so much more money. Like, I bet you like someone jumps to like, oh, they were awful to work with and that's why they're no longer here. I don't know. If you're listening to this and you have any psychological research on this, I will happily read it because that's just a random thought I had, not rooted in science or fact at all. Okay. Yeah. I love my random things. Like I'm also still someone who believes if you go out with like wet hair, you can get sick, which like, I
Right.
feel like they've debunked that so many times.
I did that today. I'll let you know if I get sick.
But my mom just like beat it in me as a kid. Like I couldn't go out with wet hair. I'd get sick. I do think that's fake. But anyways, maybe a whole episode we could do on conspiracy work
Debunking?
theories.
Yes.
Debunking conspiracy work theories. You heard it here first. Jen and I are going to do an episode on that next season.
Mhm.
Okay, big picture for a second. You believe that good HR can make work better for everyone. Can a termination, when done well, actually be a part of that?
I think yes, and that it can make work better. I don't think that there's like a way to make, again, like a termination, as we've said many times, it just sucks. It's a huge impact on someone. There's no way to like make that better for the impacted person. I do think though, again, that like there's a lot of ways to make it extra harmful, or there's a lot of ways that it's done that are very, very wrong. And so I do think that like you can do a lot to make the process as like low harm, low drama, like least impactful as possible. And I do think that is the role of good HR, to like make sure that again you're doing as much as you can to minimize some of those impacts and support people in that moment.
I think it's also like a respect thing. Like you want
Mhm.
people to feel respected when they enter the org and you want them to feel respected when they leave the org. And if they
Mhm.
can see these terminations being done in an empathetic way, or maybe
Mhm.
they're friends with the person and the person comes back and says, they had to terminate me, but it was fine. Like, or it all worked out or it was good. Like I went through a phase where people were thanking me after I was terminating them. I remember telling you that. And I was like, what is going on? Like either I was like, I must be doing something like really right for people to thank me because I'm like, this is just such a not fun experience for them and like really scary for them that if someone's thanking me, like I must be doing something better than a previous experience they've had. So I think like that does carry back to the org and people do know like, oh, this isn't a place where they just fire people willy-nilly. They know it's a place where like performance issues are documented and you are given clarity before you even get to the performance. You're not just like suddenly terminated in a random conversation via Slack on a Friday.
Right. Right. Yeah. In an
There's a
email.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, or an email at 6 a.m. It's so rude. What do you know now about letting people go that you wished you'd known at the very beginning?
I think ultimately that you have no control over how someone will react to this. And again, I think I've always like realized the gravity and severity of terminating someone, but I think, yeah, again, like just really recognizing that people will respond to that based on many factors that are outside of my control. And so I do think it's like my responsibility to do as much as I can to minimize the harm, to make it as good of an experience as possible. And also you can do all the things right. And yeah, same. I've had people who have thanked me or have said like, if I had to get fired, I would want it to be by like basically like recommending me
Oh my
for
God.
nation, which I was like, thank you, I guess. But and then also done a situation almost exactly the same and had the person like, cuss me out and scream and all the things. So, and again, I totally like I don't judge that at all. I think people are going to respond in a moment like that based on many factors, and again, just you can do what you can do, and not to have expectations, and to like not judge or like take it too personally how someone ultimately reacts in that moment.
I basically go into every termination and prepare for the worst. I'm like, this is going to go sideways. This is going to be awful. It's going to be the worst thing to ever happen. That's the mindset I go into every termination with. So then when it doesn't end that way, I have like at least a more pleasant outlook on something awful that I just had to do. Like, and that's something I wish I knew at the very beginning was like, everyone is going to be different. Every single person you terminate is going to be different. I wish I knew that they were all going to stick with me as hard as they have, honestly. Like I could probably list every single person, and I'm probably in the hundreds at this point of the terminations I've had to do. And it really does stick with you. And also like their relationship with you as HR doesn't end. Like I've terminated people and then recommended them for other jobs because they just weren't right for our org, but they're right for other orgs. And recently, like someone got a promotion I saw, and I was like, this is like, I'm not saying I'm the reason how they got there, but I'm like, okay, the relationship with your HR person can still exist afterwards. They can still be an ally and an advocate for you in a way where maybe the most traumatic thing to happen to you, they can also play a part in maybe something also really good happening to you. Provided that the person was worthy of your endorsement. Because I do think like when we have to terminate for performance, that's really hard. But when you have to do a layoff and you're just trying to connect people that you would have loved to have kept, but you can't with other people, like I think there's a path for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I try to pour like more good than bad into my job because I'm like, if I could pour more good, maybe the bad things will even out and I will have balanced the energy somehow.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's again where I'm always like, okay, my role is to first make sure that I do everything I can to like assess whether this is necessary and appropriate and supported. And then once we get to that point, I think my role switches to like, how can I make this again? How can I like upgrade this experience even like 1% to make it more clear or more supportive or whatever it can be? And yeah, that's I think all you could do at a certain point.
I wish there were less bad teams doing harm to people they are terminating because I don't know. I have like a traumatic termination experience. Like I think everyone we know probably has one, and that's just not great. But hopefully by listening to this episode, people have some food for thought on how to make it better. It's always like, how can I improve this and make this process more fair, more equitable, more kind? We forget like kindness sometimes in a world where AI might fire all of us someday. Like there still needs to be a human involved in a lot of these things. God, I made that joke about AI, but now I'm sick to my stomach thinking about it. Jen, why did you do this to me?
I'm sorry, it's not good.
I'm
That's
gonna
why
spiral
we need
about
good,
it.
strong, empathetic HR leaders who take this seriously and yes, can show that it matters.
I made a
Because
joke about this recently, but somebody was like, do you know what the phrase human in the loop means? And I was like, yeah, of course I fucking know what the phrase human in the loop means. But like, if there was ever to be a human in any terminations would be the loop that they are the loop. They're the whole process is a human, not an AI robot firing you. I really am scared for our future. Okay, I have to end on a positive note because I'm gonna spiral about this. I'm gonna text you about it right after this episode, Jen. Why'd you do this to me? For an HR person or a manager who has their first termination coming up, what do they actually need to hear right now?
just don't focus on yourself, focus on the person who's impacted. I think it makes you like better show up in that moment. And I think people can feel it when even if you're just like doing it, there's a really extreme version of it where CEOs are crying and talking about how impacted they are by it. Like, certainly don't do that. But also there's like a more nuanced version of people who I think are trying to come off like positively or end on a good note or like maintain a relationship. And I would say just put that to the side and really focus on the impacted person. I think, again, you'll show up better for them and you'll feel like you've done everything you can for them, which is ultimately, I think, what most of us want to be doing. So focus on that. And then afterwards, take care of yourself. It is a lot and process it. Make sure you give yourself the time to really, like learn from it and reflect as well.
Yeah, I would block your calendar right after termination as well to just have 30 minutes to yourself to context shift in the best way possible. And you're right, by focusing on the person, all the good stuff that you want out of the conversation will come by just focusing on the person in front of you and trying to support them in the moment they're in.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, why am I
Don't let
getting
yourself
emotional?
get in the way of that.
Yeah, don't. Why am I about to cry during this episode?
A lot.
We really got out of, not to make this about me.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
but the
It is.
termination.
It's a heavy thing. I think, again, it should feel heavy. It should feel like there's a real like individual impact of this element of our work. And yeah, I think we should let ourselves be affected by it, because I think it makes us better leaders.
For sure. It makes us way more vulnerable, way more empathetic, and just better equipped to lead humans in this human in the loop era. Just kidding. I fucking hate that phrase. Okay. For people looking to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and
Where we all are.
my main space. I'll be there.
Or at other conferences with me.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I can come visit you in Chicago, which I might be there in the summer. So I know, maybe we'll have a meetup. It'll be a good time. Jen, as always, you're literally one of my favorite people on this earth. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your first experience. I kind of know some of these memories are like painful to revisit, but we did it. And I think you gave so much good advice to people who are navigating this, even people who have been so far removed from terminations, like they don't do them anymore. I think this episode is a good reminder that there are people doing this like really hard work and trying to be empathetic and balance what's best for the employee and the business day in and day out. And they deserve, honestly, a thank you today. So thank you to everybody who's doing this work and trying the best to terminate people in a very humane and caring way, because we have seen article after article where people aren't doing that. So I just have to say thank you to everyone doing this work.
Yeah. And it matters. It makes an impact on those individuals and makes the work better for all of us.
5,000%. I echo it. As always, I'm going to go cry into a pillow now. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks for tuning in. Keep up with all the latest HR resources by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. And if you love I Hate It Here, tell an HR friend. I'll see you next time.